Hello, this is Kim Nelson. In this jewelry design video, we're going to go into how to create a template for sketching rings. In particular, this is for sketching dome rings. The other part of this project will be you actually sketching dome rings, but before you get to that, you want to have a template. So going into my top view, I'll keep it white layer for now, it's easy to see. I'm going to make a ring bore around 17 millimeters in diameter. Okay. Then going to create an offset curve from this of, say, 3.5 millimeters. At the bottom here, I want the thickness of this shank, this is the front view of the ring, to be 1.7. So I'm going to offset this curve 1.7 again. But this is simply a reference curve. I'll actually put it in a different color so it's obvious that that's a reference curve. Now I'm going to move this outer curve up using quad snap from the quad of the outer curve to the quad of the reference curve. And then I'm going to take a look at that. That looks bad, so I'm going to start over. Hi, this is Kim Nelson. I'm going to be doing a tutorial jewelry design. Hi, this is Kim Nelson. In this jewelry design video, I'm going to cover how to make a template for sketching rings, in this case specifically dome rings, mostly metal ring mounting. So first thing I need to do is start to get down some basic dimensions. I'm going to start with a ring bore. Start that around 0. This is in the top viewport. Doesn't matter, any orthographic viewport will do. And this will be a diameter 17 millimeters. I'm going to then offset this to 3 millimeters. This is a pretty good basic thickness for a metallic ring. Okay. I can't have it further away at the bottom here than 1.7. So I'm going to offset this curve again, 1.7, but this will just be a reference curve. And then I will move this curve up using quad snap from the quad of the outline to the quad of the guideline. And I can throw that away. Okay? This is a fairly generic looking ring, front view, for something that's metallic, kind of heavy. I don't like it. Start over. Hi, this is Kim Nelson, and I'm going to do this jewelry design tutorial on how to make a template for sketching rings. In this case, it will be for a dome ring or metallic ring mounting for an oval colored stone. So start by getting a basic ring bore dimension for reference. So 0 at the center, diameter 17. And then I'm going to offset this a standard 2 millimeters. And I can't have it thicker than 1.7 down here. So I'm going to offset this again for a reference curve, which I'll do in green so it's easy for you to see, 1.7. And then move this curve up using quad snap. That outer profile, move up to where it hits the bottom quadrant of the offset reference curve, and then delete the reference curve. Okay, that's a pretty generic ring front view. Okay, These are not, the only dimension you have to stick to here is the ring bore. Okay, the other dimensions will change as you design. Need to set up a center line. I'll do this in green. Center line, starting at 0 with both sides option. Shift key to pull that out to length. This is fine. And I'm going to offset this through point. That's T enter. Both sides. B enter. And I'm going to snap to the quadrants on the outside of this ring. Going to do it again. Through point. Both sides. And this time snap to the inner ring bore. And that gives us a good set of curves to start working with. I can actually move this down out of the way. Create a center line going horizontally, once again at 0, both sides option. Turn off grid snap. There we go. Now the width for this ring is completely up to me. That's a design choice, okay? But the minimum it should be would be, well, the stone is going to be of fairly good size. So let's draw that before we do anything else. We're going to make the stone a 6 by 8 millimeter oval. So ellipse from center. Go back to the white lines, white layer. 0. End of first axis. You have to do this in halves. So it's going to be 8 millimeters, so 4. Drag to show where you want that to end. Hang on. I may have to edit this. Second axis would be 3. And that is not a 6 by 8 stone. Oh, it is. Okay, so I'm going to redo that. Okay, so I'm going to create a 6 by 8 oval color stone. Doing it around center using the white layer. 0 as a starting point. End of first axis, we're using this ellipse from center. It's going to be half of what we want the finished dimension to be. So it's going to be 4 because we want 8. Pull out to the side with shift key and click. And then it's going to be 6. So we want 3 going the other way, half of it. And you can actually check that distance to make sure it worked. In your drawing, it should be fine. That's 8 millimeters by 6. And you want to put a bezel around this stone. And we're going to do 0.7, so offset 0.7. Okay, so these are things that we know. Now, it's nice to have in your template some kind of a width, just so you know what you're drawing to. You don't want to, but your design should be free, so you can either make this bigger than the stone or smaller than the stone. Don't make it exactly the same. And make it a dimension that means something to you. For example, 3 millimeters each side would be equal to a 6 millimeter bridal stone, right? But that, I don't find that very useful. I'm going to make it larger, and since I know that this is going to be already 4 millimeters or so, I'm going to go 6. That's as fat as I'm going to want that ring to be. Offside through both sides. Type in 6. That gives me an overall distance here of 12. Okay, so that's a good place to start. So the question you have now is, as you're using this template, is it going to confuse you having these lines extend out a long ways? It would me. This 2mm thickness is an average thickness between the fingers. It can go up to 3mm there. It can go down to 1.7, so it can go a little bigger or a little lower. All right? I'm going to just go ahead and cut it at the 2mm with the understanding, it's a trim command, with the understanding that this is not glued. I can do whatever I want to with that. I don't have to follow it. I'm going to make this ring bore lines also. Well, I don't want them in the white, so we'll make them dark blue. I do want them to be concrete. These can't, this is a very important dimension to have as you're sketching, because it helps you visualize the cross section halfway down the finger and the overall metal thickness. So it's an important thing to have. So we will keep that line. Okay, the last thing that we need to do for this is we need to be able to establish a couple of things. As you know, I like to draw my designs flat. For a dome ring, that's not so important, but it's nice to have that option. So I'm going to find out how long this is. It's 66mm, roughly, and roughly is good enough because this is going to actually not be the finished front contour, so it's not going to be the actual dimension. This is a sketch, a sketching template. 66mm is close enough. Okay, so I'm going to draw a circle, center, a diameter. Use my grid snap, click over here, and make it 66mm. Going to make a copy of this, or I could offset it. Either one is fine. Keeping it interesting, I will copy it. And as I've mentioned in the past, I only use grid snap for making large movements, so I can move things back and forth and get them back into position. I don't use it as a typical modeling aid, but by using the grid snap just then, it allowed me to just grab that and pull it up and have it be in the same place. I'm going to trim this off. Take a minute now and trim off the bottom line. The lower center. Okay, double check, make sure we have the right distances here. Analyze length. 66, 65.97, fine. Going to offset this curve 6mm, just like the traditional top view. So both sides option. It's remembering 6 because that's the last dimension I used, or I could type in 6 and hit enter. Either would work. And I'm going to want a copy of this stone. Once again, using my grid snap allowed me to just move it up there. Okay, that is an effective template. That works fine. Okay. The front view here is just for sketching. It would be useful actually to know how tall the stone is. It's going to be a faceted stone, so how tall is it going to be? You'll recall that I mentioned last semester in stone proportions that the overall depth of a colored stone is about half of its shortest radius or dimension, diameter, sorry, or dimension. Which in this case, it's a 6x8, so this 6 would be its short dimension. Half of that would be here. So I'm going to actually borrow this stone again. And I'll just bring it down to here. That's fine. And then I can move it up until I have some clearance from the ring bore. Draw a line using the quadrants. I could also have used center snap if I wanted to. And then a curve, a regular curve tool with a both sides option and holding the shift key. Any way you want to get there is fine. Okay? I'm going to split this curve with that line. Okay? We know that we want roughly 20% of the short dimension here for the crown. Okay, we've already got using intersect and quad. We already have the information for the pavilion of the stone. Okay? We don't really need the dimension for the crown, but if we wanted it, 20% of 6 millimeters. Okay? That's 1.2. 10% is 0.6. 20% is 1.2. So if I offset this curve, that'll be more than enough to accommodate the top of the stone. There was actually no need to split that oval. So we have what we need. Okay? If I want to make this look like a stone from the front, there's no need for that. But if I want to, table of a faceted stone is 53% of the outside, so of the girdle. So transform, scale, copy equals yes. 0, so start at 0, type in 0.53, and hit enter when you're done. You'll see that isn't offset well, because when you scale it's very different from offsetting. So now we're going to offset a curve through point, and we're going to average it. A little longer here, a little narrower there. And frankly, I find offset oval sometimes to be distorted. So I'll go ahead and redraw it just using a regular oval. See if we get a different result. A little bit. See how the offset curve has kind of a point? All right, so that's fine. So now that I have this width, I can do an offset through point, both sides, capture the width of the table there, and then use a polyline and intersect snap. Enter when done to finish drawing that stone. Once again, for a template, all I really needed was the girdle line. All I needed was this line to show me how high up I wanted it. But the more the merrier. So that's all the information I need for this template. Okay? The center line is useful. The girdle line is kind of useful. I might want the bezel, but it's starting to be too much information. But if I wanted the bezel, it would look something like that. And then I would offset a curve. Sorry. Offset a curve, through point. and stop just shy of the table. That's how tall a bezel would be. Right? And I can trim that off with any number of curves I want to. Probably makes more sense to trim it with this one. There. That is certainly enough information for a template. All right? So now that I've got this, I want to lay it out on my page so that I can have more than one. Right? So, transform copy. I need them far enough apart that the flat version doesn't run into each other. But you can see that's a very inefficient use of space. So rather than do that, I will offset it. That allows me to get 3 of them pretty easily side by side. And if I wanted even more, use the selection window. Did not mean to do that. I'm trying to deselect. I only want these 2 sides. I could take these and copy them. Up. The only real criteria here is that my front view doesn't run into anything. Okay, and that's fine. That's enough. I can make these lines continue to extend. Several ways to do that. Easiest way at this point is to do F10. And just grab these control points, move them up. That's fine. Now, when you do the repeating pattern, you're probably going to have more of these inserted as well, but we'll deal with that later down the road. Last thing I need to do is I need to check on the colors. White is not a good color for printing. So I'm going to select objects, right click on the layer, and I'm going to put them on my black layer, which on this file is my storage objects. Or I could have just clicked on this box and changed this to black. Either would work. The blue color that I have for the ring bore is a little dark. I like that better. It becomes obvious to me that I'm going to have the same issues here. So I'll F10 those and grab control points. Zoom in a little so I can just grab the points. And move. And since I've used grid snap all along, they'll all line up. There, that's it, that's done. So save it. Cannot type. Do video at the same time. All right, here we go. So I have this. It's not very much use to me in this format, right? Because I want to sketch with it, and I can't sketch in Rhino. So I'm going to take this now, I'm going to print it. And you have the option here at the top to make it an image file. You also have how big you want the image to be overall. I have it to 6 by 6, and you can see it's doing some awkward cropping here. So I'm going to make it 7.5. By 10. That's much better to work with. Resolution, printer, high quality at 300 dots per inch. Okay, you want it in color. Okay. This you should be able to leave alone. It should be at 100%. It should be your top view. It's the view you drew it in. Margins and position you can ignore. Line types and width. The default line type width is 0.18, which is very, very, very thin. 0.25 is probably going to be a little heavy. We will try 0.18 and see what we think. And then we will hit print. And because it's an image, it's going to give you a file browser. So we will do the same thing we did before. Go to whatever file you're keeping it in. Steal it from the last file. And hit save. And that should have exported everything that I need to use this as a sketching template. Okay, I am realizing, before I end this tutorial, there's something I don't like. While drawing these little tables was fun for finding out the depth from the front view, they're confusing and inconsistent. So I will delete them. Save the file again. And print the file again. Checking that it's in color. 7.5 by 10. Image file is a JPEG, PNG, TIFF, etc. 300 dots per inch. Fine. Scale is line width is 0.18 millimeter. And yes, I want to replace it. So, that's it. Thanks so much for watching.